Welcome on into WFRV Plus Sports Night. Cameron there with you on this Thursday as we wrap up your week of sports. There's always something going on, isn't there? Hey, everyone. Thanks again for joining me. Yesterday, we talked about Packers coaching changes, which seemed inevitable ever since Jeff Hafley left his defensive coordinator post here in Green Bay for the sunny and nice palm trees of South Beach to coach the Miami Dolphins. And with that, he's taken a lot of Green Bay's staffers or those that were on his staff. Linebackers coach Sean Duggan, DBs coach Ryan Downard, Derek Ansley, no longer the defensive passing game coordinator. And on top of that, am I missing one? No, I think that's it. Well, Wendell Davis, right? The defensive quality control coach, nicknamed Ball King. Well, because of Duggan's absence, there has been a change in the Packers coaching staff. They just added a linebackers coach to Jonathan Gannon, and it is a Wisconsin native from Oconomowoc. That's Sam Seifkes. And Jonathan Gannon has a lot of comfortability with Seifkes because he actually hired him 3 years ago to be the linebackers coach in Arizona when Gannon had first got to the Cardinals as their head coach. And then after 2 years in Gannon's final year with the Cardinals, Seifkes left the NFL and went to be the defensive coordinator of Virginia Tech and in college football. And now Seifkes and Gannon will team up once again as Seifkes is hired as the next linebackers coach for the Packers in a position that is really, really vital. I mean, Duggan, it hasn't been announced yet, but Duggan might be Miami's defensive coordinator for a reason because that position group that he spearheaded for the last couple of years, I mean, it was very important for the Packers' success or at least getting into the postseason. Think of the green dot, a guy like Quay Walker and his maturation. Duggan played a large role in that. Isaiah McDuffie signed him to a 2-year deal for a reason because of his growth in the Packers system and how much he mattered to that defense on the second level. And even drafting a guy like Edgerrin Cooper. And I mean, if his stats popped off the page a little more, but from the eye test, I mean, that guy is all pro caliber. Not to mention, you drafted Tyron Hopper, and he feels like he's coming into his own at his first career pick against the Bears toward the end of the season. So that linebacking core, a big part of Green Bay's success, or I don't know if people here in Titletown would call it success because his team didn't win a Super Bowl or even get close. But if it wasn't for Duggan and how he, I don't want to say revolutionized, but he took a very young linebacking core and turned them into elite at the second level, I don't know what Green Bay's defense would have looked like. So Duggan played a large role in that. We'll see if Seifkes can do the same. And cool background on Sam Seifkes as he comes from Virginia Tech as their DC. I mentioned a Wisconsin native. He is a graduate of UW La Crosse, played football there, had his playing career cut short because of an injury, but then was an assistant, or pardon me, student assistant at La Crosse because obviously he couldn't play anymore, and then ended up being a grad assistant at Wisconsin, UW-Madison, for their football team, and then ultimately was the defensive coordinator at UW-Platteville, that powerhouse D3 program down there near the Madison area. So this guy's got Wisconsin in his blood, and with Gannon going to the Packers, if you dip deep into the timeline of Gannon and the bloodline, what he, who he hired in his past, it felt like this was inevitable as Seifkes becomes the next linebackers coach for a team. Again, we haven't spoken to him. I don't know if he grew up rooting for them, but being from Oconomowoc and most likely rooted for the Green Bay Packers. So Sam Seifkes, the new linebackers coach. Now, a lot of the departures for Green Bay on the coaching staff have been on the defensive side, obviously, because Jeff Hafley was the guy, you could say, or at least the leader of that defense as the defensive coordinator that called the plays. And because he went down to Miami, many of his fellow staffers followed him for more advanced roles or roles that were better than they had in Green Bay and furthered their career. But there's been a move made on the offensive side by a coach, which, my goodness, did he shoot up the ranks or what? Matt LaFleur brought on a guy named Sean Mannion, who started his NFL career in 2015, ended it in 2023. So only, 3 years ago. And the Eagles just hired him as their offensive coordinator. Mannion's 33 years old. This is a guy that's been coaching for only 2 years. One in an assistant role on the offensive side, mainly with the quarterbacks, and his second as a quarterbacks coach. Now, the Eagles, not that they have any problem at quarterback, but with Nick Sirianni being who he is and the a fiery individual that always wants to try new things, you might as well hire a young up-and-comer. But it is crazy to think that Mannion was just a quarterback 3 years ago, and now he's the OC for the now defending Super Bowl champs. Obviously, that'll change, but the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Packers were going to have to look for a new QB's coach after they had Tom Clements for, 3 decades? Coached up Favre, Rodgers, and Love. You bring in Mannion, hopefully to be the successor in a sense. And he is for a year, and he does such a good job. I mean, look what Jordan Love did in terms of accuracy. And if it wasn't for that injury late in the season, or pardon me, the concussion, which you could say is an injury, if it wasn't for that, the stats were climbing off the page toward at least the back half of the year, but he wasn't turning the ball over as much. The accuracy was probably the best out of any of his now 3 years as the starting quarterback. Mannion did a great job, but now the Packers will have to look for a new quarterbacks coach. He is the new offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, probably one of the Packers' most intense rivals in the NFC. And by rivals, I mean in terms of success between the organizations, not so much hatred, which there still might be hatred there. I mean, think of the last 3 times they've played the Eagles, they're 0-3 against them, one being in the playoffs when the Packers were eliminated in that 24-25 year. So those are the changes to the Packers coaching staff. We're going to take a short break here on WFRV Plus Sports Night. When we come back, we'll talk more sports because that's what we do next on the show. We're back on the show. WFRV Plus Sports Night. Cameron there with you. See me in this suit. Did the 6 o'clock news and then raced over to the Crest Event Center. Green Bay women's basketball eyeing a 13-0 start in conference play and an 18-5 record overall. They battled Wright State, and it wasn't close at all. I mean, this GB team is treating the Horizon League opponents like they're playing with food. Held them just 15 points at the half. Dominated overall in that game. Another 20-point win. And Kayla Karius has something rolling over at Green Bay. And I say that not to discredit the fact that GB has had something rolling for the last 2 to 3 decades. Kevin Borseth really kickstarting it, and now it being Kayla Karius's ship to drive or to motor. But this team has it all. And just as a spectator, even though I was also, shooting the game on the camera, but just as someone who admires the game of basketball, what Karius and senior Jenna Geyer said post-game was just how much their defense opened things up offensively. And that's why I think Green Bay can make it back to the NCAA tournament. I don't know about win a game in the tourney, but they can make it back to that point. And why they're dominating all these Horizon League teams is it's a lot of ball movement in the Horizon League. Find the open shot. There really isn't much offensive one-on-one. Not saying that the players in the Horizon League aren't talented enough to go one-on-one, but it is very much team-oriented in a league like the Horizon League where you recruit a lot of local and a lot of players who have this skill set in terms of building a culture. And that's exactly who GB brought in from this past season after losing a majority of their players last year. And it's working wonders. Maddie Skrupski opening up the offense, bringing the ball up the floor with Cammie Pepler. That 1-2 punch in the backcourt is dangerous because you swing the ball around enough And you can find an open shooter, especially against Wright State today, in which they played zone most of the game, which yes, if that's their philosophy, great, but I don't think you can play zone against Green Bay, especially because as much of a good shooting team as they are, their goal is to muddy up the middle, get the ball on the inside, whether it's Carly Duffney, whether it's Jenna Geyer, Megan Schultz, and just watching the growth of Schultz and Geyer over the last couple of years. I mean, Schultz's move is patented at this point, right? The lefty off the glass, off the left side of the rim, and then Jenna Geyer's turnaround lefty hook shot is very much a no, 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 yes type of shot. But she's mastered it to the point where if she can get to her spot, 70% of the time, I'm confident that one's going in, because it's a very unorthodox shot. Why would you take a leaner lefty floater when you're a right-handed player? But Geyer has mastered that in the paint. That's what I really think that Kayla Karius and that coaching staff has done a great job of, is conditioning their players into mastery in a certain role. I mean, Maddie Skrupski's speed, Cammie Pepler's ability to get to the rim, Jenna Geyer's post game, but also her stretch five ability, Megan Schultz standing in there in the paint, drawing defenders her way, which opened things up for shooters, and she could find her own shot if then the defense doesn't want to collapse on her. I mean, you name it, Christina Wilmette and her ability to shoot the ball, you can't leave her open. Gracie Gresh, her corner pop from three-point range. No matter who on this team goes off on a given day, if then they can play good defense, you're talking about an offense that is so versatile, you can't stop them all at once. You can only hope to contain them, right? It's that phrase, the cliche phrase. And gosh, they just got everything rolling right now. And I do think that there are some gaps defensively, and a lot of them are exposed later in the game. Not that the game is in reach to then be exposed in a loss, right? Because they've won, a crap ton of games in a row. But they have every piece. I mean, swing it around the circle and choose your weapon. And that's what Green Bay has that I think other teams in the Horizon League don't, is they have weapons all around. If Jenna Geyer scores 20, Skrupski's probably getting her 15 and getting 10 assists, right? If Megan Schultz is in double figures, then Gracie Gresh and Carly Duffney are probably more defensive pieces. But you're talking about then a deep bench as well. Lily Hansford came off the bench, the local product. And not just that there are others that can come off the bench and provide minutes. I mean, Marin Westeen is a player who's coming off a just two brutal injuries. She didn't play basketball for what it felt was. I think it was 500 days. And now she's back in the fold as a combo guard. And I say combo guard because I just feel like they all are. I mean, Marin Westeen and Maddie Skrupski, they're not the biggest in size, right? But the fact that they can do so much makes that combo ability more so than, your mid-size three that can play the one or the four, right? And that's what separates GB and has separated Green Bay. And I think back to last year with Natalie McNeil, Maddie Schreiber, with Cassie Schiltz, Jasmine Kondrakowicz, who's now an assistant coach on the staff. And by losing all of those pieces, Callie Genke, by losing all of those pieces, look at the way that they've replaced them. Callie Genke, like the Freedom native, I mean, lights out shooter, came into this program and really, really added to the how prolific Green Bay was at putting the ball in the hoop from distance and spreading the floor and opening things up. So if defenders do collapse, they'll pay for it. And you replaced her with so many weapons that can drive and can shoot. I mean, I think Christina Wilmette is a great comparison, but she's even taller than Genke was. I think Natalie McNeil and Maddie Skrupski were a perfect one-for-one trade, with McNeil graduating and Skrupski transferring in from Oakland. And then Jasmine Kondrakowicz, Jenna Geyer's filling that role, so is Megan Schultz. And of course, you're going to miss Maddie Schreiber and Cassie Schiltz. But the fact that this team is more dribble drive oriented, and if they need to kick out for a 3-point shot, they have the shooters. But it feels like there's not much standing around. The stamina on this team is really what separates them from the pack. And right now, GB 13-0 in conference, 18-5 overall, a dominant win over Wright State tonight. And they have a longer break. They don't play, I think, till next Thursday. So they'll get the weekend off, get that much needed rest. Not that it's even needed. From a record perspective, it might be needed from a health perspective, right? Because any rest is good. But from a record perspective, I mean, this team is leaps and bounds over everyone, just beyond their competition in so many ways. That's why I think the Green Bay women's basketball team, they are on a crash course for, again, an NCAA tournament appearance. Okay, break time here on WFRV Plus Sports Night. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show with more talking sports here to wrap up the week. Let's do this thing. WFRV Plus Sports Night, another night and another Bucks defeat. Of course, no Giannis Antetokounmpo. Might be the end for Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee, but you lose to a very lowly Wizards squad and old friend Chris Middleton. It's not much room for the Bucks to make any push. I mean, Giannis said it I want to say it was a week ago, and this adversity, you need it during the season. You need it as a motivator to continue to push, to continue to fight, to continue to strive towards something. Then he brought up the fact that they only had, 39, 40 games left in the season, more than halfway done with the year. Looks the media dead in the eye and says, we just don't have the time. We don't. We don't have the time to deal with the adversity. We need to turn it around now. And of course, Giannis out for the next month and a half with that right calf strain. And I can't see a direction in which this is a successful season for the Bucks. And as much as I want to keep talking about them, I mean, there's just no room for this team in sports conversations. It's gotten to a point where the Bucks now match what their market size is. And Giannis took them above that. This wasn't the Milwaukee Bucks. This was a team spearheaded by Giannis Antetokounmpo. And now it's just the Milwaukee Bucks. And they're back to mediocrity or even worse because they don't have Giannis on their team. And they don't have another superstar to fill in. Yes, they have Miles Turner, but I mean, Miles Turner is a complimentary player. He's very good. He gets paid a lot of money for a reason, but he's not your superstar. He was the third or maybe fourth option on that Pacers team that made the finals. He was important, but he was still a third or a fourth option behind Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam and Andrew Nembhard and you name it. So, yeah, not much room for the Bucks. College-wise, Wisconsin men's basketball, that big comeback 67-63 over Minnesota extends their border battle win streak over the Golden Gophers to 11. That's the longest in their program history over Minnesota. And it's a huge win for a multitude of reasons. John Blackwell, Nick Boyd combining for 44 points. And the two of them, they both agreed that earlier on in the season in games like against Villanova, get down by a lot, they would just hang their heads. Just down. They put them down. And it didn't feel like there was fight. That game felt like there was fight. They trailed by 18 at the half. Didn't really feel like anything was going their way until it started to go their way, and they came out on a big run. It was like 20-4 or something like that out of the halftime break. That's a Minnesota team that they should have beat, and they did. And for Blackwell and Boyd to continue to show that the danger of that 1-2 punch, gosh, I really do think that Wisconsin's built for March with those two, with Andrew Rohde, with Nolan Winter, with you name the guys on that team that can come off the bench as well. It feels like they're built for the long term. Braden Carrington coming into his own, that Janicki kid as well. So I feel like there should be a lot of confidence around this Wisconsin squad. I want to close out the show by giving a huge shout out to Nina's own Ali Zabel. Now, I feel like many know the name. Graduated Nina a couple years ago. Just an incredible girls basketball player. and led that program all the way to the state championship game on her back. They took home silver, but my goodness, she averaged over 20 a game, but it felt like she averaged 40. Her importance on the floor, the attention that she would get, and it did not matter. And that girl could shoot the lights out of the ball. McDonald's All-American. There's only about 20 something named a year in the state. And commits to UConn after UConn has an year last year, at least to their standards, even though it's still a very good year. Then now they're number one in the country. They're undefeated. They were taking on Xavier the other night and absolutely blowing them out of the water. And Zabel, she's not going to get the most minutes out of that team because there's so much talent. They're number one in the country, like I said. But as a sophomore, you check her in. UConn was 0 of 10 from three-point range until Allie hit the first. Then she hit the second. Then she hit the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and her 10th three, 10 of 14 from distance. Out of the 15 shots she took, the other one was a make. It was an and one, by the way. And Allie Zabel, with 10 triples, that ties a single-game UConn record. UConn, the most storied franchise organization, pretty much a franchise in women's college basketball history. She is 34 points off the bench. That's a record. I don't even know what the previous one was, but I assume she shattered it. And they won by 50, but 10 threes, just could not miss. There was a certain point where it was 74, 77 UConn was at. And Allie hit 4 or 5 threes in a row. I mean, her ability to shoot the basketball is going to help for a team that looks like it's on its way to win the national championship. And Allie Zabel, my goodness, she was incredible. And Gino Auriemma, one of the all-time winningest coaches in women's college basketball history, said after the game, what impressed me the most wasn't the final stat line. It was how confident she was to shoot the ball, to attack the rim. And he's like, that's who I recruited. What I saw out there, that's who I recruited. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And it shouldn't surprise anyone here in Northeast Wisconsin because we watched it on a nightly basis. Andy Brunell and company did a great job throughout the process of elementary school, middle school to get her to high school. And the dedication that she had and still has for the game, it showed in how joyous her teammates were for her. And just the smiles and the celebrations that she got after the game. Because that was a breakout game that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. And Allie Zabel had herself quite the ball game. Okay, that'll do it for WFRV Plus Sports Night. We will see you next Monday. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a good rest of your night.